to welcome our speakers. We have Beau, Raquel, Tiago, and me. Beau, would you like to start and introduce yourself to the community?
Sure. Hey, everyone. I'm Beau Ulrey. I've been working at US Bank for about 4 years and been working on their design system for a couple years. Right now, I'm leading a handful of teams that work on the system across web, native, a few different platforms. So it's been a really cool couple years to just learn a ton about design systems and be next to some really just knowledge experts and learn as much as I can. Before US Bank, I was with IBM for about 5 years and also went through some crazy learning there just about the carbon design system, design thinking, research. Just got to learn a ton about the design practice and grow. And before that, I went to school for design and photography. Quickly got out of school, went and got to do some interaction design in an internship and realized that was what I wanted to go into and really focus on. And I loved, taking everything I learned about print and digital and branding and applying it to experiences, products that you get to interact with on a daily basis. So that's what I've been focusing on, and it's been really fun. I'm based in just outside Portland, Oregon, and I'm thrilled to be here today to learn from everyone else as well. So thanks.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Beau. Raquel, would you like to go next?
I'm Raquel. I'm from Lisbon, Portugal. I started traditionally working on UX UI first, then evolving to product designer, and then at the moment doing more design ops focused. Eventually, I did a little bit of design ops without giving a name on it because it's now more trends title, let's say. I've worked on e-commerce, then afterwards on fintech, and then telecommunication. And now at the moment, I'm in automotive, more specifically to MAN truck and buses. And so, yeah, I've been in companies that didn't have any design system. Then I have a small traditional design system, and then a multi-level, multi-brand design system. And now I'm launching a design system from scratch. So it's been very funny so far, the topic. And yeah, thank you for having me today. I'm looking forward to learn from all of you today.
Great. Thank you for sharing. And also, by the way, Raquel has her own Friends of Figma chapter for Portugal, right?
Yeah. I can share after the links, and we are been quite active. So yeah, you can dig in and join us on the next events. Thank you for remembering.
Thank you. Tiago, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I think definitely check Raquel's Friends of Figma because they unpack a lot of times live open public design systems. It's really fun. I've watched a few. I've had fun with that. Yes, my name is Tiago. I'm also from Lisbon, but I've been living in Stockholm, Sweden for the last 9 years. So I'm almost half Portuguese, half Swedish now. I've been working at many different places. The biggest names that everyone knows, almost for sure, Ericsson and Klarna. Mentimeter, maybe some of you know, and so the ones in the know will nod and be like, yes, Mentimeter. But right now I'm in between jobs, they say here in Sweden. I got laid off, and now I'm kind of focusing a little bit more with a little bit more energy on making videos and online activity and Figma community assets. Yes, I'm a bit weird today because I have a little bit of a throat bug, so you will forgive me. That's pretty much that.
Sure, and you have really good YouTube channel on the design system, very professional.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Props to your personal branding, by the way.
Yeah, I'm inspired. Great, thank you. And I'm first Sabita. I'm living in Mountain View, California, in Bay Area, working at EPAM, helping large organizations, enterprise organizations, to set up design systems. And I've been helping a couple multi-billion companies to set up the design systems on how to actually connect design and code, how to measure our impact, and usage metrics. I'm a community advocate for DesignOps chapter as well. Great. So let's get started with the goal of this session is to see how to actually connect design code within a design system. So we will have a lot of topics here and a lot of discussions, and we would love to hear also from the audience if you have if you are facing any of the same issues, or maybe if there is a challenge and you have already a solution, please share. So we will be happy to learn from all of us. It's more like a co-creation session today, open panel. So today we're going to speak about the information architecture of how to connect design and code together. We're going to speak about the tools, about design tools as Figma, Storybook, engineering tool for documenting their components and how we could actually connect these things. We will speak a lot about integrations and other tools that are available on the market, Zero-Hide, Supernova, and others. And we will speak about the way how we could not only connect these two worlds together, but also show some of the statuses, maybe connect things not only with design and engineering, but also maybe with product metrics, or maybe with the Jira, so we will be able to find all the statuses of all the components that we are working on with. The first question is, seamlessly integrating design components from platform Figma with engineering components from platforms Storybook significantly improves the efficiency and effectiveness of design system. So we would love to know if you agree with this statement or not. I see that many people are voting right now. Great. Another question. Your team has successfully integrated design code components in your current design system. So we are speaking about actual connection. So if you have a component in Figma called search bar, can engineers find the same component in their story or somewhere else, right? The third question, the maturity of your design system allows for consistent support across multiple products and platforms. So this question is more related to maturity of your design system. Are you focusing only on one product and one platform, or your design system supports multiple products or multiple platforms, right? So this is very hard and to manage all of that, but it's feasible. Great. So let's see the answers. Great. I feel a lot of people agree with the first statement, so I'm happy. Only a couple of people are thinking that maybe it's not a good idea to think about and invest a lot of time into that. This is, again, here we are for debates. If there will be some counterpoints on our thinking process, let's discuss and let's come up with the answer together. The second question, I see that we don't have any specific highlight or specific insights to get from this data. A lot of people are saying that they are still in progress. And we can see that more people somewhere on the right side. So it looks like somebody already started to connect these things, connecting these two worlds together. So maybe people could also share their practices with us as well. And the last question, yes, we can see that, again, no specific highlight here. It's very broad across the whole scale. Great. And if you will have any questions, feel free to ask them in PTM file. Here we have answer some questions Q&A section where you can just click on ask a question, just type a question, and when we will have time, we'll come back here and we'll be able to answer them all together. Also, it's important to use sticky notes. If you see something interesting or you want to share any thoughts, just use sticky notes, put it on top of some of the materials that we are going to share. If you see some insights, some actionable insights, please share them as well. So it's interesting for us to see, based on our discussions, what kind of ideas we were able to spark, right? And takeaways as well.
The first question, so I was one of the detractors, one of the rebels, seamlessly integrating design components between Figma and tools like Storybook. I think it definitely impacts efficiency, but there's root causes that move the needle more than connecting tools. So I was it's part of it, but it's not the core that a design system can bring as far as effectiveness. So you can connect your tools and still have teams that aren't connecting with each other, and it doesn't really move the needle.
Absolutely.
So that's where that's coming from. It's not to say no, we shouldn't connect tools, but it's part of the solution, and there's a deeper root cause as well that has to be addressed and looked into.
Yeah. I also find it interesting, this too, because it really shows how most of the companies are still in digital transformation. So introducing a design system is still a new thing, right? It's a very trend topic, but most of the reality is not a thing or not a priority. So probably have colleagues here that are doing an extra job, or, you can finish your job and then afterwards you can do some of that stuff. So eventually, I think it takes time for a company to realize how powerful it can be. So for those who are on that
Yep.
mission, keep up.
Great. So let's get started with the first topic, the information architecture. We have our own secret board where we are going to put some of the materials into the public board. So we wanted to show the things that we are only covering right now, so the audience will be more focused. So who will like to go first and start with information architecture topic?
Yeah, I think I can start because perhaps then Tiago can complement his big, beautiful yellow boxes. Yeah, a little bit related to what you said, Tiago. I really agree that we should consider, at least from my reality, because I've been working in large companies and so on, and maybe could really help when talking to business wise and your stakeholders to consider a design system as a product. So if you imagine a design system as a product, you really have to think the needs and the stakeholders behind it. So your information of architecture should really reflects that. And I just give here some examples so I can illustrate a little bit what I'm saying. For instance, at the moment, I'm in a automotive brand. So the reality could be, for instance, we have multiple departments, as you can imagine. So we have marketing department, then you have digital products, more focused realities, even though they're a little bit spread around, but you can, map that as a pattern. Then you have engineering, vehicle departments. Then you have some mobile apps. And for instance, if the architecture of the design system reflects that, maybe it could also be more easy to have a dialogue with those departments, right? Because I think the way the design system is organized should really reflect that reality. Otherwise, it's just some random design system that you have pre-made on the website and you just download it and that's it, right? So some suggestions that I put here is that you should really have a vision and a mission, because if you have a vision, you can see, for instance, how you can evolve your architecture through time. You might not be there at the moment, but maybe in 2 years, if you consider on that skeleton, you will have space when creating documentation for that kind of situation, right? So also for the stakeholders, for instance, if you be realistic, depending on the way your organization is organized, but probably you won't be the only people that will contribute or create stuff that could be beneficial for a design system. So if you collaborate with other teams that can contribute with your situation, and then the architecture of information is aligned with them, maybe it's more suitable for them to collaborate. You can go on this page or on this section and use this tool, because eventually, if that's not a collaboration, the dialogue, they will just keep their own libraries and you keep your own ones, and that's you have mushrooms of design systems, let's say.
So
Yeah.
have multiple design systems within one organization.
Yeah, that's also a reality. It's a funny one.
I think one of the core things here is that design system is not only for design and engineering, right? So it's also for the product teams, it's for content,
Yeah.
it's for marketing, for other, where we could contribute into patterns,
Exactly.
assets, and styles, right? And that design system could be applied to multiple platforms. So this is the ideal way. Yeah, but making sure that people are speaking about the same language, about the same things, having a good information architecture might be a good foundation to facilitate, right, this connection between different worlds. Here, I just shared a couple things here. I personally like to do more analysis on what kind of technical limitations and capabilities do we have in each of the tools that we'll integrate. And here on the left side, you will be able to see the Figma levels of how components are structured, if we're speaking about components, and how, based on different frames, pages, and files, the component name for API will be changed as well. And on the right side, you can find the storybook levels. So having these three main pillars of grouping things in the same way how engineers and design, again, at least trying to have them one-to-one, that's a great goal, but for sure there will be, from the beginning, there will be a lot of inconsistencies. Two roles will not speak to each other perfectly, but that's the goal, right? The same applies for naming conventions and component variations. Oh, thank you, Raquel. I see that you've added.
I will practice and copy first and then after talking. This is just some examples, and just to illustrate that I think there's no universal solution to an architecture for your design system. Of course, that the main traditional one would be values, foundations, and components to start with, right? But eventually you have to evolve, or at least to adapt to the business needs. So for instance, here I have two examples of two different architectures that I've been working on. One of them is the most current one, but the other one was the previous experience that we have by brand, for instance. And so each brand would also have their realities and their platforms, but for the way that we are organized as a team, so I think that's also another key factor when organizing this stuff. Okay, you have a team for multiple brands, how the design system should reflect that, right? Because eventually the production should be recycled and so on. As you can imagine, they always want to try to optimize those kind of things. But you also have to create realistic stuff, because you can recycle that much if the technology is not the same, right? But eventually, this is just to show, at least from my experience, that everything is possible if it makes sense for your reality, basically, in the multi-level organization. Yeah,
I feel you presented a really good structure of, first of all, understanding the org structure and what kind of programs and portfolios do we have within the company. Should we think about one global design system, or could we think about program-specific design systems, right? And then I realized how you are thinking not only about having one design system, but having white label design systems that could be applied to multiple brands, right? If we are working in a market, that could be a great thing to think about. Great. Thank you for sharing.
no problem.
I have a question around the framework. So let's go deeper right now. We understood that it's important to think about different practices that you are to connect. So it's not only about design and engineering, it's also about marketing, product, content strategy, and other practices. Second thing, it's important to understand your org structure. If you are a really large organization, there might be some cases when you need to have program-specific design systems, if there will be such case. And also there are a lot of politics around that as well. So we'll not go there. And it's important to think about the platforms and also white label solutions that could be applied for different brands, right? But let's speak about the frameworks right now. Tiago, do you have any insights or your favorite frameworks, or how you will to organize design system components?
Oh yeah, I actually shared it here. Let me spotlight myself, help people a little bit. It's gonna move, don't worry. So of course, everyone talks about Atomic Design by Brad Frost, and I advocate for that all the time. I give people that to read. The problem is, if you actually try to do Atomic, you're gonna spend so much time explaining the difference between molecules and organisms. What I've done in almost every design system is really say, okay, you have atoms and then you have molecules and organisms. It's normally one category. For instance, at Klarna, we called it elements and modules, but at Reoptimi, for instance, we called it bricks and sets as a Lego metaphor. And then you have the design tokens, which of course Brad couldn't predict. I think someone introduced the token concept even before what we call today tokens, as a WCAG standard that's being worked on with values that can be shared across Figma and code. But tokens in itself was a concept that showed up maybe like 4 years ago. And so that's definitely, we can call it something else. We can call it styles, right? So style themes. And then everything else on top of that remains the same, right? So we have templates, which are almost little pages that don't really have content, and then you can actually have the screens themselves in different scenarios. You could call them pages, you could call them screens if you were working on mobile. It's interesting. The other thing that I kind of take attention here is normally screens and pages belong to product teams, not to the design system. Even though, for instance, at Optima, I had screens in the design system, but it's asking for too much to maintain them updated and all of that. It's probably better that they leave as artifacts for deliverable moments, and then people just don't update them if they don't need to. I think I think a little bit going a little bit down the elements and modules metaphor should be kind of obvious, right? We're talking actually knowing a little bit about code will help here because an element is an HTML element, right? It's the smallest little bit that you can have. Except for forms, it normally really means like atoms. So you have a button, right? It might have an icon, which is a token. It might have text, it's typography, it's a token. And then when you have these elements, these atoms, you can start creating stuff with them, right? You have your module for an announcement, and you can see that the announcement has an illustration, it has a paragraph, it has a button, which is it's a button, which is an atom, and then maybe it has an icon button, which is another atom. So if you follow this, and then you can imagine that you'd use modules with modules and build crazy complex stuff, but always with this idea of dripping from the smallest little bit will inherit bigger and bigger structures that I think Brad calls patterns. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Raquel said system of systems. I think I don't want to say that Spotify came up with that, but they had the design system, and then they realized we cannot have one big system to cover all the needs, and
Yeah.
so a lot of rogue systems started popping up at Spotify. I have the luxury of living here, so I kind of heard that was happening. Oh, now someone created a new design system that had nothing to do with the main design system because we weren't like it wasn't sharing the necessity of another team. So show here a little bit of another information architecture, which is the core design system. It normally has the tokens. It normally has core components, components that can be used across the different applications, across the different native web app, even let's say a dashboard on a car. Then you might have plugins and widgets, which normally people would say, hey, it's ops, but for me, it's systems. And actually, not wanting to go there already, systems are ops. So it's not a very accepted notion. It's people tend to be like, oh, ops is one thing, systems is another. And from a practical standpoint, it's better to have these separate teams. But let's stop that. Then you have other design tooling in the design system, and then nowadays you're seeing more and more multi-brand. So if you keep the token separate from the actual main components, you can now actually have multiple brands. You can do that with tokens, but you can do that even without tokens with just Figma style libraries. And then you have colors and typography for one brand, and then you have colors and typography for another brand. And when people want to change brands, they just swap library and everything just updates automatically if you've done the job well, which is a bit of a pain.
Yeah. That's the tricky part. Yeah.
And then, as Raquel said, you have native apps, you have web apps, you have websites, right? And I want to focus a little bit on website because when you talk about website, you actually mean that every component needs to have, in some cases, breakpoints. So you might
Yeah.
need to have a component for mobile because a website will work in all of the different formats. So it gets trickier and trickier and trickier.
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of wish that Figma played more nicely with overrides because you could imagine that you could create a mobile component that's just the main component with little small overrides. I think
Mhm.
Mm.
design tokens get introduced natively, it will be easier because then you just swap the tokens and now you have maybe a little bit smaller buttons on mobile. So that's the dream.
Yeah.
Let's see if that happens.
maybe they are going to share that on config so that the dreams come true,
Yeah.
right?
They've been promising forever, but yes, yes, I know that their PM is working on it. So let's
Spoiler alert.
yes.
Heard it here first.
Okay.
folks.
Bo, would you like to share, is it from your experience, and one of the jokes that I hear a lot in these design system communities is that, okay, we have 3 design systems within our organization. Let's create another one that will unify all of them, and it's happening all every year. So that's why organizations have multiple design systems in there.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think all of it presents a really big organization problem. Like, how do we help people find the information, whether we have a single system that's built from the ground up, or it's, our team is very small. We just need a Figma UI kit, and that's the need right now. No matter what the thing that's being created or anything like that, it's all about, the gold or the buried treasure out there. I've got younger boys, so I'm always thinking about like pirates and buried treasure and stuff like that. So the buried treasure out there, it's totally useless if you don't have a map to get there. So, it's all about what Tiago, Raquel, what you guys were talking about, organizing the system according to your organization. Start there. So if you're a designer in a certain segment, you know where to get started, and you know where to find stuff, and it's easy to search, it's easy to understand where things are located, or it's easy to reach out and ask a question. You know who to go to if you can't find stuff
Yeah.
on your own. So something we really focus on is thinking through the different types of experiences designers and developers have with the system, whether you're new to the organization, maybe you're new to design systems and you're not really sure. I've worked with style guides and branding before, but I've never worked with the design system. What is it? Or you've been at this organization for 5 years and you've contributed to the system, and that's when we get into, Farid, what you were sharing, Storybook compared to Figma, connecting the layers really well. If you're in there, you know how to speak the same language with your counterparts in developing or in design. So all of it, and from what I've seen, it's all about making it so all the information, the tools, the assets, they're as easy to find as possible. So you find what you need, and then you can focus on other things, doing research, understanding more about customer pain, iterating, tinkering, going through design sprints, doing the things that are really beneficial for teams to be doing. So I also added a little chart. It's really similar to what Raquel shared. This is pretty close to what my team's working on. And basically, we have our core design system, and we have a community space where product teams across the organization can share. And you can also check out the Carbon design system. That's near and dear to my heart. And it's pretty close to how we're thinking about things. We have our core system, we have all of our platforms, all of our components and patterns. These are all built atomically under the hood, but we're setting up the IA in a way that's more approachable for our audience. And then we also, so the core design system is controlled by a centralized team. We are the design system team. Oh, cute cat. Totally distracted. And it's good. And then so this is where components are highest level of quality. They're controlled by a single team. They're published regularly. They're supported. And then the community library is all about the different business lines. As they're creating their components, they have a place to share them and refine them. Tiago, like you were saying, if it's pages, it's owned by the product team, so they can do their own research, learn, iterate, ship something without our team, our design system team, having to get involved. So it's all about setting the teams up to use our system, build on it, ship features faster without tripping over a need to connect with the design system team. So
Mhm.
it's all about, yeah, just creating that way for sharing to happen. That's like an extension of the design system, and we're able to scale a lot faster that way. And it's definitely built into the architecture too.
Yeah. Well, you touched a really important topic here of having business line specific product libraries. So my question is, do you have dedicated team working on the business line product library? Do you have this approach of having, I will share one of the examples here, is global and product libraries. So it's hard for large organizations to have just one design system because it's not covering program specific or industry specific components, right? Or patterns that we have here. So that's why I'm always taking this example Atlassian, but I'm not sure if they're doing that or not. So the thinking process here is within Atlassian design system, you will not be able to build Confluence or Jira, but you will have a generic understanding of where the whole Atlassian company as a brand will to go, right? So that's why we need to have product libraries, and every product, Jira and Confluence, they have their own product specific components. And the most important thing here is think about the right team compositions, think about the ways how we could communicate and review all these changes, because it's important for global design system team to quickly review all the product libraries updates. If they're facing any challenges, that's a great feedback source for them. Should we add the search bar into the global library or not? Or should we simplify it? Can we set up some guidelines around these search patterns as well? My question is, Bob, for you, because you already have this business line specific library. So I'm curious to know how it's all organized. Do you have business line specific product library design system teams, or is just product teams doing these things ad hoc and just collaborating this design system? But do you have a dedicated product specific design system team?
No, so it's definitely the second. So I've heard larger companies, Facebook, they'll have a design system team specific to small business or something, or like the ad space or something like that. We don't have that. What we have is basically we've got our centralized design system team. We're creating components. We're trying to communicate how we create components so that other product teams can do the same when they're creating things that might be more complex or new variants. So what we're trying to do is share the best practices that we've been working through so that other teams can create at the same level of quality. But usually it's the business lines will have they'll identify their own components that could be reused across teams within the business line or potentially beyond their business line, and they'll work to create an asset in Figma and publish the code in a place where it can be findable. So the design system team, we're here to consult, answer questions, help them build if they run into any roadblocks. But really it's trying to teach and trying to make space for that sharing to happen. And who knows how that will grow in the future. I think we're kind of 1 year in to having a community library space. So the first pain point was enable teams to create and share and move faster, and enable the design system team to focus on the core system and have some synergy going on for like a businessy term. And then the next step is starting to tinker with how does that actually work and how do we collaborate and how do we maybe set those teams up better. So yeah, that's kind of the next level. Hopefully we'll push on that some more.
Yeah, and there's a really good question on the chat itself. And Tiago, Raquel, please jump in if you have anything to share about that. Is what about the governance of design systems, especially between product teams and design system team? So I feel we covered that a little bit. We started going through the large enterprise level design systems that are multi-brand in some cases, that are multi-platform in some cases, that are having not only one design system, but multiple design systems as global and product libraries. I can share a couple of things around the governance and dear speakers, if you have anything else to share, please do. So yes, it's important to, I feel, standardize and understand what is the process around the design system and how design system collaborates with other counterparts, product library, design system team, if we have dedicated people, or product teams itself. I feel that the thing that helps to accelerate the adoption of design system is having internal communities and internal advocates of design system, having design advocate of design system, having engineering advocate of design system as well, making sure that the product teams are really adopting. So design system team is working on the components and the whole process, and advocates are part of the product teams that are working closely with the design system team in order for share the feedback, understand what they should do with like search bar components, for example, and patterns. Speaking about, yes, the team compositions is having this advocates accelerates the adoption. One of the other things that helped us a lot is we started having inventory co-creation sessions with product teams. And the way how we did that is we just took one specific product, created a sitemap of this product as just screenshots of the web page, and then together with the product team, design system team, showed them how exactly they are cutting all these large pages into templates, organisms, molecules, and atoms. So it will help this product team to understand how actually design system team works and thinks and how they are grouping things. Then they are working on the naming conventions and trying to think about, okay, here's the way how we would like to call notification bar, or some people will say, oh, it's not notification, it's alert bar or something else. And we could align on the naming conventions and also the props. What kind of options, what kind of types of props do we need to have to support all these product teams? Because the product team is right there and they're doing this workshop and they could share, oh, we actually need this kind of patterns, we actually need this kind of variations of the component. Yeah, and making sure one of the core things of the governance is visibility, making sure that design system team has a page where they are showing all the component statuses that they are building connected to Jira tickets, and also not only about delivering patterns and components and tokens, but also thinking about how they are evolving the maturity of design system, maybe bringing analytics, maybe bringing some automations and integrations. I will speak that in a second. But Tiago, Raquel, well, do you have anything to add to the question that was shared in the chat?
Yeah, I also at the moment use this model that Tiago shared. I think it's called hybrid governance model. I am in the central team, but we are responsible for all the source truth, but we want to create this contribution collaboration spirit among the corporation, because we know that we won't be any on every project and in every reality, right? So we want for us to people to reach out with our contribution, and then we review and validate if it makes sense. But I think this one works a little bit better from the other ones. I also investigate and try a little bit the other ones, but I think it's very to try. Basically, you have to try on the place that you're working on to see if it works, because it's really about culture. You have to start a culture in visualization of the design system, right? Because it's very romantic to realize, oh, okay, people will contribute, but you have to make sure that people actually believe in the mission. Otherwise, why they will waste time on contributing something for you, right? Mm-hmm. So we also want to support that spirit from their side, and also what we do at the moment, because we are starting. For instance, we do this tip from Brad Frost, which is do an interface inventory, or also called design audits, when we see with a lot of designers, okay, show me what your current situation in your product is and how you are using, for instance, drop downs, buttons, and so on. So we can consider that for our backlog and maybe build a realistic proposal, right? Because just creating components, just because, as you were mentioning, also this effort of creating a nomenclature and components that matters. I think this approach is very good for creating a relationship with them, also to be more realistic about the components that you're creating, and also you get context with the products, right? Because we also lose that sometimes, I think, when you're very focused on the design system. If you don't know sometimes the reality of the product and the feature behind, it's really difficult also sometimes to create components. So I recommend this practices for you to try with your colleagues and so on, because it's also very fun how you found out, oh my god, they're using the button like that, and you have even no clue, right? So yeah.
Tiago?
Yeah, I just wanted to share a bit of more of a concrete case, because at Klarna, for instance, I was working on the design system. At some point, we started calling it the library, just
Yeah.
because of not creating confusion. But the reality is, I wasn't the core design system. I was working on a local one, on a product-based one for the website. And I kind of, for reasons that don't really matter but have more to do with lack of time, the main design system was mostly for the native apps, for basically small screens. And it was, everything was made in a way that I kind of had to recreate, for instance, tokens on my side and all of that. So these are the challenges when you don't create the core system with an idea of being reused by other libraries that might pop up. For instance, I couldn't, at, at the beginning of the systems, we had separate libraries for icons, separate libraries for colors, separate libraries for typography. I couldn't use them just because we needed more. We had different colors. But for instance, like at some point, someone decided that at the top level that, hey, now the core system is going to be just one file, right? And I was consuming icons, other people were consuming icons, and we were like, okay, now what? Like, now we're gonna have to recreate an icon library because we cannot connect to the main one. Otherwise, when people consume our local library, they're gonna have two buttons. You're gonna have the buttons for mobile, the buttons for the website, and these are the challenges that sometimes people either don't think about or down prioritize, and that ends up leading to the system rebellion, where you start having actual systems and not systems of systems. I will give you one example. I have a mentee on ADP list, and he says, "Oh, I have 3 systems on Figma," and I'm okay. And it's like, yeah, it's, we hired consultants, they made it, and the next team thinks that they cannot use it, and then they make a new one, right? And I was, wow, this is the edge case.
Yeah, I feel it's important to start with central governance model so that there will be ownership around the global design system, right? And then setting up the global design system should care about the process and the collaborations with other partners, making sure that they have the right feedback loops, they are having the right rituals to connect and review materials, they are reviewing, thinking about the intake model and how to make sure that all the feedback, all the requests are covered by the design system team, right? And everyone then tries to move into federated one. And that's why the federated is more open for everyone to contribute, because we have foundations, and then building on top of foundations is much more easier. And at this point of time, federated governance model is much more applicable. Thank you very much, Tiago. You shared a lot of interesting materials here. So I just wanted to quickly go through some of the things that we have. Yes, I feel we already covered the frameworks, how people could organize their design systems. I'll just add a couple others. BAM was popular 2-3 years ago. Not sure how it is right now. Also, we used element component template because, again, Atomic was too complex for people, and that's why we started to think about these inventory workshops, trying to educate product teams on what is the difference between molecule and organism, because everyone has the same question. Great. And another thing that I will just add here is, yes, actually to connect these things together on the higher level when we're speaking about the platforms and the libraries. It's important to go through each of the products, each of the tools that you are thinking about, trying to visualize the information architecture of the tool and how it could be mapped to your design system architecture, right? So that having design system as common architecture of the stuff, right? And how other tools, Figma, Storybook, GitLab, or Jira, or other things could be integrated and connected. And by visualizing all of that and communicating with the team, you both have an agreement on the way how to connect things. Regarding integrations and automations, I feel when you have a foundation, when you have a true design system with a great understanding on how we are able to connect design and code together, you're unlocking new capabilities, some new fun stuff that it will be really hard to implement from the beginning. So here, if you are trying to connect the design system, one of the core areas here is, first of all, design library on the left side, engineering or code library on the right side. At the bottom, the governance, how you are managing all of that in Jira or in GitLab or in Azure DevOps, in any other issue tracking systems, the ones that how you are thinking about releasing updates and how you are thinking about distributing all your design system work, right? But most importantly, I would like to focus on this central part, on how to actually connect patterns, components, styles, and assets. There are a lot of tools that are available on the market right now. Zero Hype, Supernova, Coda. Some people are using Excel. It's really it's a big pain to use Excel for that purposes, but some people are able to do that as well. So this is one of the solutions, right? And I'm a fan of Coda, and I'm going to share the product hunt on the product hunt design system manager template that allows to document and connect things within Figma API and Storybook that will allow you to have more scalable approach on documenting design system instead of manually trying to gather all the components that you have in Figma and Storybook and connecting these things. And also another problem is not like connecting ad hoc as a first version, right? But also supporting that, because there will be a lot of hundreds and thousands of components that you will need to support during the next 6 months. So it's also important to think about the supporting process, right? So here's a quick overview how you could you could use Coda. Again, I'm a fan of Coda, that's why I'm sharing some of the things here. Coda has a great API on the table API that will help you to, again, pull the data from Figma, show all the styles within Coda, documented everything there, connect it with the Storybook, and then you could manage and track all the changes across styles, assets, and components. And another cool thing about Coda is that all editors are for free. And I guess one of the blockers of moving into federated governance model is that you want to give everyone ability to contribute, provide comments, suggest edits. So that's why within Coda, all editors are free. So you can just invite everyone and ask them to contribute here, right? And here's the pack that I'm released yesterday, and today I'm going to do that on the product hunt. So if you want to check it out, please check. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. But it helps you to synchronize all the styles on the team and file levels and all the components on the team and file levels across your design system and documented everything in Coda. Also, there are a lot of great APIs and from Figma itself where you could generate design tokens out of that. So we were doing some custom solutions on that, how to pull some of the basic tokens and compound tokens and generate compound tokens as a part of the style dictionaries directly from Figma API. Again, this is more recommendational system. It's not going to go into the production right away. That's why it's important to connect these two roles as design and engineering together. Another interesting thing when you have a common naming and common understanding of all the components is, for example, for quality assurance, if you want to do visual regression testing on how components are available in design and how they're actually implemented. This is one of the solutions that we made for Flutter, internal mobile-specific Storybook that pulled images from Figma API and just put that as an overlay to the code. So engineers and QA team were able to quickly see inconsistencies. And as you can see in this example, a lot of different platforms, they have different rendering issues of typography. So that's why you can see right away that typography is out a little bit. So yeah, this is, again, when you are setting up the foundations for the design system, you have common understanding on how to group things, how to name things, and what kind of variations do you have. You are speaking about within the same language with engineering and design, you could unlock these new capabilities because you could just map components and unlock these new things. I see that other people added more materials here. Who would like to go first? I know we have only 3 minutes. Okay, we will do part 2. And I feel one of the cool things that we could speak about that I was really excited about is AI. Because I see a lot of people are using ChatGPT for documenting things. Again, it shouldn't go to production right away, but it's a good starting point for people who are struggling to set up documentation on the design system and also code. And the same tools as Notion, they also have AI capabilities that will speed up your process there as well. And also, I wanted to highlight and share some of the interesting parts of how you could cluster large amount of data and how you could not only cluster large amount of data based on the frameworks that you are using or connecting design code together, but also auto-generating some of the code. Again, this is good starting point. It shouldn't go to production, but there are some really interesting concepts that I see so far that people are using OpenAI API to move to generate design tokens, style dictionary for different design tokens for different platforms. And also there are some interesting concepts. If you have a legacy product, how you could replace local components inside the engineering code with design system components. So there are a lot of interesting things happening. So unfortunately, this is a big and huge topic. Let's discuss that as a part of the part 2 session, where we're going to speak about design system AI. Fancy topic, hope people will like it. But we have some interesting examples as well here, so that's why it will be fun.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I feel like we have to jump in and define it and put AI in its place a little bit, or else it might get ahead of us. So in my mind, it's okay, quick, let's list off the mundane things that nobody wants to be doing and figure out how AI can at least get it 80% there. And then let's figure out the things that AI could technically do, but it's the work that inspires people and motivates people and brings enjoyment to our lives. And let's make sure we're protecting that or using it the right way to enhance that. So that's kind of what I'm seeing. We got to figure it out and be intentional about it, and don't let it eat things that we don't want it to.
Yeah, I think the other thing is we talk about boring stuff, and it's we don't need AI to do some boring stuff for us. We could just automate, and that's also I want to kind of really sing the praises of the Automator plugin by Diagram. It's amazing, of course, and that's the challenge. It requires some knowledge of code, or at least code logic, because what you're doing is actually coding interactions on Figma visually, so it's a bit easier. And if you learn just a little bit of basic programming concepts, you will be able to do really cool things. Let's just say creating and fixing all of the icons in one go with just one click of a button. Yes, I will put some stuff here because I actually have YouTube videos on that, and Diagram themselves have a community of automations there for people to download.
Yeah. Just to add quickly that experience is human, because I've seen a lot of LinkedIn posts, oh, AI will take a lot of jobs and designers will not do anything. No, that's, for me, it's absolutely wrong, right? Because you have to have a designer. Eventually, I don't think that we shouldn't have afraid. You just use it as a tool, as things that come along every time, right? So, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of, the thing about AI is this: will AI know why the design decision was made? Sometimes
Yeah,
not even
exactly.
left, and we have to reverse engineer the design decision and the do's and don'ts. Will ChatGPT know that? I think what ChatGPT gives you, it's maybe the basic layout of the documentation, but a human can also do that. I've in at my last 2 design systems, I actually had a how to document on the first readme of the design system. There was, okay, every component you need to have these fields and explain these things, and you don't need ChatGPT for that. And I kind of doubt that ChatGPT can explain it in a way that people
Yeah.
can get it, because you need to know your users. You have
Yeah,
no clue. ChatGPT doesn't know who it is for. Is it junior designers? Is it people that never used Figma before they saw your design system? You
Yeah.
need to be a bit adapting the system to people. So it's a product. Design system is a product. You need to be user centered,
Absolutely.
right?
Part 2 already started, so we'll continue for another hour. Yeah, this is a huge topic. Let's discuss that in the part 2. Thank you very much for joining the session, everyone. We will share the recording. We will share the FigJam file, so feel free to use. The main point of sharing the FigJam file is to make sure that you have some actionable insights to take with you and start implementing and trying new things together. And I hope our discussions, we were able to spark some new ideas and new conversations. So let's meet in the part 2. So people already sharing in the chat that they're looking forward for the part 2. So let's do that.
Amazing. Such a
Great.
good audience.
Thank you all. The recording will be shared on the YouTube channel. Thank you for joining and investing your time.
Thank you. Thank you all. It was very funny.
Thank you. Thank you, Farid, for setting all this up as well.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your work.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah, Farid,
you.
thank you.
So-
Catch you later.
Take care. Have a
Bye-bye.
good